Hi, I'm Becca Otis from Five Lines Pottery in Indianapolis, Indiana.
And I'm Ryan Durbin from RD Ceramics, located in Southgate, Kentucky.
And welcome to Wheel Talk.
Hey guys, we've loved answering all of your questions so far. If you'd like to hear your question on the podcast, please send them to us on Instagram at Wheel Talk Podcast or by email to wheeltalkpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks. Hey everybody, before we get to today's episode, we got a few notes to mention about NCECA 2023. It is rapidly approaching. This recording is going to go on some episodes leading up to it, and we hope to see you there. It is happening March 15th through 18th in Cincinnati, Ohio. I am just across the river over in Northern Kentucky, so it's a home game for me. I'm really excited about it. I've never been to NCECA in the town that I live in or very close, so I can, sleep in my own bed. That's going to be nice. We want to let you know where we're going to be. So Wednesday, I'm going to be at the Speedball booth starting at 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. That is at the Resource Hall, booth 309. Come by and see me. I'll be doing some throwing. Later that day, we are going to get together at Queen City Clay to meet up with Tim C. and some other folks that are hosting the Clay Buddies Meetup and Shot Glass Exchange. So we're going to bring some shot glasses. We're going to bring some small items to exchange with some folks from the Clay Buddies group. That's happening from 4 to 6 p.m. on Wednesday. Queen City Clay. You've either heard the episode or it's coming out. My chat with Ben Clark. We're going to be talking about Queen City Clay, what makes it special. I think it's the biggest community studio in the United States. So definitely want to see that. That is not downtown, but you should make a trip out. It's a great studio to see. They have some exhibitions going on, as well as just, that get together with Clay Buddies folks. So that's Wednesday. Thursday, Becca and I will be doing a live podcast recording titled Learning Through Collaboration. That is a group panel with Lindsay and Dante from the Mud Peddlers. We're excited to get together. It's a 1-hour discussion on Thursday from 2:30 to 3:30 in room 212 of the conference center. So come by and see us. We're going to be answering live questions. We're going to be talking about some topics related to that title. And it's just going to be a good time. So come by and see us. And then later that night, we're doing an informal Wheel Talk podcast meetup. That's going to happen at Rhine Guys Brewing Thursday from 7 to 10 p.m. We just want to see you all. We want to see our listeners. We want to have you all come out, have a drink with us, hang out. There's also a show going on that same day in Rheingeist. It's called the Imposters Show. So there's a few friends from the show that'll be there. Isaac Shue, Andrew Linderman, some other folks. They're selling work. It's a pop-up. And, there's a lot to see there. There's also some exhibitions happening at Rheingeist. So it's a huge venue. It's a great venue. We want to see you. Come by, hang out, see us. And that's Thursday. So Friday, a little bit more chill. I'm doing a speedball demo again. I'm going to be alongside my studio assistant, Erica. So if you want to come by, say hey. We're going to be applying underglazes. We're going to be carving, talking about all the stuff that we use and why we like speedball underglazes. That's going to happen Friday, March 17th in the Resource Hall from 1 to 2 p.m. Booth 309. So come by and see us at Speedball. And the last thing you want to make sure to hit in the Resource Hall, go by our sponsors from L&L Kilns. We're really thankful for their support. They're in the Resource Hall as well. I don't have their exact booth number, but go check out their kilns, see what they offer, see the Genesis controller, see the element channels, all that good stuff we talk about, and tell them we sent you. We really appreciate their support. And then lastly, if you want to get all of this stuff with all the places we're going to be in text form, we're going to put this in an IG story highlight on the Wheel Talk Podcast Instagram account. So go there, see all that stuff listed out so you don't have to go back and listen to this and find out all that information. And then we've talked about in a past episode where we created a Google map that Rachel and myself put together of different places that are of interest that we think you'll like, whether it's a place to eat, a bar to go to, or just a really interesting area of town that you should check out. So we also will have that in the IG story highlight. Check that out. There's a lot of places in there. I don't expect you to hit all of them, and it's also not the end-all be-all. But it's just a lot of places that we've enjoyed the last few years that we've lived here. We've been in town for nearly 10 years, and we just love it. So we hope you really love Cincinnati while you're here. if you made it out. If you didn't make it out, we'd love to see you in Cincinnati in the future. It's a great town. We really enjoy it, and we hope you really love NCECA coming up. It's a great experience, and we just can't wait to see more of you all in person. So thanks so much. Let's get to the episode. Bye. All right, and we're rolling. So, all right, welcome to another episode. We are on site. I'm on site out of the basement. I'm chatting with Ben Clark at Queen City Clay. Do you want to introduce yourself, kind of who you are, what you do, how you represent Queen City Clay?
Yeah, sure.
And then maybe just general about the studio.
Yes. So, again, my name's Ben Clark, and I have been a part of this studio for 18 years now. And I'm the president of Queen City Clay, co-owner, and then I have another small LLC that owns the building that we're in. And so I started working for Annie Swantko of Annie's Mud Pie Shop, which was the first name of this place. And she was the one who actually started this studio over in the Hyde Park, Oakley area. And we rented that space. I taught for her, and then she wanted to get out, so she sold the place to one of my students, Tom Funky, and then he sold the place to another one of my students, Nancy Stella, and then Nancy got a book deal because she was a child psychologist and came up with this.
Oh, so she wasn't even like a teacher and all that stuff. She
No,
just happened to want to own it.
Yeah, when Tom was selling it, she had gone through cancer treatments, and the shop was like her place, her zen place, right?
Oh, okay.
So it meant so much to her, and she on the side would buy businesses, make them operate lean, and then sell them, right? And so that was her thing. And so we talked. She bought the business and had me run the whole studio side of it. Tom had me as education director, and so I was running the studio side anyway. And and then Nancy was doing the finances, and Beth Solentrop, who is still with me, was helping with that financial side. And so we teamed up and got the thing running lean, and then Nancy got that book deal, and I got to buy it from her. And I had no interest in the financial side of things. And so Denise Chase, who's a local vet, was one of my students at the time.
Okay.
And she was at that point looking to slow down a little bit with the vet clinic. You know, she had enough hires that she could do that. She owns the vet clinic. And so she came on as my financial person, and so that I could just focus on running the studio.
Okay.
And that, since then, it's just been a beautiful setup.
Okay. And how big is Queen City Clay?
So
square footage.
We are currently in a 50,000 square foot building that we own, which is key. We moved a couple of years ago in the middle of the pandemic, and that was fun. But
how big was the old space?
The old space was 25,000 square feet,
okay.
and we rented that. And so we're in this 50,000 square foot space. We have everything you could imagine for a ceramics business. So our model is that we put everything under one roof and try and make it all one community. So we are a retail shop, a pottery painting studio, a huge education department, rental spaces, kids programs, everything you could imagine that you could do with clay. We want it all to be done here.
Right.
And the idea is that if one part of the business is not doing well, the other 6 are hopefully picking it up,
Okay.
And so far it's been completely recession proof and all of that with that model, and a very open model. We try and be a yes business. You come to us with an idea, we want you to succeed, we'll try it.
As a student coming to you, or just as a
Anybody.
random person that's not even...
Other businesses, like collaboration locally and internationally, and students saying, hey, I would love this class, could we try that? Sure. Some people saying, hey, I'm from Procter & Gamble, I got an early retirement package, and they give you money to start a new part of your life, right? I love pottery. I want to try that. So we started a potter certificate. Okay, yeah, let's make this work. Well, 2 years, you'll become a professional potter, and we set up classes and instruction and everything for that. So it's constantly listening, and trying to say, yeah, we could do that, and then put it out there in the world. And so that's the type of thing that we're working on. Yeah.
Okay. And when you initially came in, did you have that kind of teaching background before you even came to Queen City Clay, or were you how did you kind of get into the Queen City Clay sphere, or where's your background at before you got in here?
I had a weird background. So in college, I went to DePaul University, which is a little liberal arts college in Indiana. And I just was filling out my freshman year schedule and put in a pottery class. And I instantly fell in love with it so much that I wanted to do it all the time. So I was just lucky enough to have a professor that said, okay. He basically, it was like he changed the course schedule numbers for me, so I could take pottery the whole time.
Yeah.
And still not.
They didn't have a lot of people trying to get into pottery, so
right.
You're like,
and so
can you do this for me?
I was making all the clay and the glazes and firing the kilns. I was teaching the intro classes by the time I was done, but I got an English degree. I didn't do art because I had no interest in the painting and drawing and photography and everything else. And so after college, I was a little bit lost trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Did I want to be an English professor? And realized, no, I have to do ceramics. And at the time I was working at Founders Brewing Company, running their tasting room and coaching gymnastics and doing jump rope competitions around the world. That was my life.
Jump rope competitions.
At that time, yes. Because I was a competitive jump roper a long time ago. And so it was
That's something crazy that I didn't know, and then you see, I don't even know the context in which you pull out the jump rope and start doing things, but it's like, what?
Yeah. Well, when I was a kid, my 5th grade teacher, he had a demonstration team for the American Heart Association. And so we would go around and teach kids how to jump rope because it was the cheapest way to keep your heart healthy. So the American Heart Association was pushing jump rope hard. Mm-hmm. Well, before you know it, there were 10,000 demonstration teams across the United States. And so we started competing against each other, and then the sport kind of blew up. And so by the time I was a freshman in college, I had won 2 world championships, and our team had won some national championships, and so I was at the top of the sport. But you couldn't make money with it. It was just a fun way to travel around the world, right?
Right. Yeah.
Now I think they're with Instagram and TikTok and everything, there are kids who are making decent money with it and still pushing and doing things that I couldn't imagine doing with rope now. But it was a great way
it's nuts.
Yeah. And so I was kind of ending that portion of my life and decided I had to get into grad school. So I did
was that because you had that kind of like base, you still wanted some kind of professor sort of role, but you didn't want to do it in English, so you had to get a master's.
I absolutely love the teaching side, and so at that point, that was what you did, right? You got your MFA and you tried to get a tenure track position somewhere. Well, no one would let you in if you didn't have a BFA at that point. So my professor again made a special call. His grad school professor was still at Wichita State, and he said, I'm going to fly this kid out. I want you to meet him and see whether, you would accept him into the program. He did, but then he retired that year. So
no.
David Hiltner, who runs Red Lodge Clay Center, that was his first year as a grad professor at Wichita State, and he gets me, who was not...
So you already got in, though?
Yeah, I already got in, but I was not ready for grad school. I didn't understand that until after grad school, but I was not ready. And so David Hiltner gets in. He wants to start a functional program, and I am doing this weird sculptural stuff. I don't know enough about clay to truly be a great grad student, but he said, listen, you are going to get your BFA and your MFA at the same time. I'm going to make you do double duty at the beginning. So I was taking art history and painting and drawing and
man.
all of this stuff. And at that point, I was so obsessed with art that I loved it. So timing wise, it was wonderful.
Okay.
So it was hard as hell, but I absolutely loved it, and got through the program. I don't know how David dealt with me, because I just, like, when you look at his work and what he's done, he's so good that it had to be frustrating to deal with someone who did not know enough to be in grad school at that point.
Is part of that loving it and like keep pushing yourself because you had a little bit clearer path that
Yes.
in undergrad you just didn't, so you were like, that just seems like fluff that I don't need to focus on?
Yeah, it really is, and also there's that fear thing with art, right? I didn't understand painting. I didn't understand photography, so that was scary to me. But clay draws you in, and the harder you work, the better you get. And I know it's like that with every art, but with clay, it just, you see.
And you had that interest level, that base of interest level that just was like, okay, that'll get me in the studio, and things will happen.
Absolutely. And then in grad school, I met these wonderful friends who were painters and functional potters and all of that. And they truly helped me understand how to talk about art, how to critique a painting, understand that background. And then at the same time, I'm in these classes. So it was such a good part of my life. But looking back on it, I do want to apologize to David Hildner, and I've said this to him before, like, how did you deal with me? But I got my MFA, and then I went to Centerville, Indiana, where my local town potter lived, and from where I grew up, and because I grew up in Richmond, Indiana, and he was Scott Schaefer, and he's still working there. He's brilliant, like really good potter, and an old curmudgeon, and I begged him to be his apprentice, and he said yes. And so he had me cleaning bricks and helping him build wood kilns and salt kilns, and I was working in his studio, and he taught me how to be a functional potter. He taught me how to make handles, and he was taught by Byron Temple and that lineage, right?
Okay.
And so you had just great potters in that line, and so with him.
What made you want to do the pottery side? You said you were doing sculptural things. Was there something that was like for business? Okay.
You got it. Like, you sell a sculpture every once in a while, but people love the functional, owning a mug of yours. And my local town, Richmond, they were always big supporters. I have people who have bought pots from me when they were terrible, terrible, terrible all the way through. And, always tried to support. And so I wanted to learn that functional side. Plus, I just love the wheel. That's all my sculptures are wheel thrown sculptures. And so the wheel, I have as much fun making a mug as I do making a large wall sculpture. And so with that setup, with Scott, he was the one who threw away hundreds of my mugs until I made a handle right.
Okay.
And then he said, okay, you can keep that one. And so that became the setup that helped me be able to go to a studio like this and teach. And so once I finished with him, my wife got a postdoc here at Children's Hospital doing research. And so I moved to Cincinnati. That was back when we used phone books. And I looked at the phone book, and the first studio in the phone book was Annie's Mud Pie Shop.
Oh, there you go.
And I went over there, and like my jaw hit the floor, because you don't see a 25,000 square foot studio anywhere, right? Unless you're like Clay Space in Philadelphia or something, and even that set up
Northern
different.
Clay
It's
Center
stacked.
in Minneapolis.
Yeah. I mean, you've got a couple, and they're generally nonprofits, and they're supported in different ways, and so this was something that I hadn't encountered before, and I begged her to be a part of the studio, and she was tough, and so once I got in there, that's kind of where I led through to the teaching side that I'm on now.
And you just generally, are you pretty much hey, throw something at me, and you're like, you know what, I can help out with that. Like, I might not know how to do that yet, so maybe I'll take it on. Because I feel like you had a good education baseline and, like, interest there, but
yes,
you said, like, the other things that you had to run.
Oh,
there's
yeah.
like classes and structures and curriculums and like.
Well, and I'm an idea person too. So as I got into this studio, I also got the teaching job at Northern Kentucky University. And so I was a professor down there and running the studio up here. And so the amount of techniques that you're having to figure out is kind of mind-boggling. And so, yes, a lot of them I could do. I had a background. I had seen it. I had tried so many different firing techniques and everything that I was willing to go at it. But also, you're building skill in that because so many students are asking you about different techniques. So yes, I'm researching all the time, trying stuff at night and then teaching it the next day type thing. But then as we developed not just the department down at NKU, but the studio here, because it went from 35 students to well over 100 students every session pretty quickly. When you start saying yes to everything and everyone's feeling like, they can be creative and you're expanding the glazes and the firing options, it really built fast. It became obvious, like, we have to have a large, strong teaching crew,
Right.
in order to be able to say yes to everything. And Chrissy Trout was with me. I mean, she started at Annie's Mud Pie Shop the time I did. I started teaching. She applied for a retail job there, and she had graduated from Miami University and was an extraordinary hand builder. And so
she has your hand building taken care of
Yes.
there because you're more wheel focused. So
Yes, and then John Steen, who is now the education director here, he, as a sophomore in high school, asked to be my apprentice at the old shop. And so he learned exactly how I teach and my philosophy on everything and became an incredibly good wheel thrower. And so, and he, traveled, studied in Japan and went to Utah for grad school. And so his knowledge was amazing. And then he came back here. So you're looking at someone who has great atmospheric firing knowledge. Beth she can go anywhere. She's an amazing hand builder, great sculptor. Chrissy's just phenomenal with her hand building technique. I'm the wheel side, John's the wheel side, and so you start to spread out like that and you get a really good base, and if I can't do it, someone can.
Is it just having those people in proximity and seeing the potential and who could take up what task, and is that like a long-term thought, or is it just, hey, we need somebody in this? How much work would it be to go find somebody outside of the building versus pulling internally? And
that's a really good question, and it's been so organic the way that's formed, right? I got lucky in that Chrissy and Beth and John were these initial people, but also you're looking over 20 years, right? And the people who stick around are the ones who love it and are obsessed with teaching, but also are great at just jumping into any position, whatever's needed. You can't get an operation like this to succeed unless you have a staff where everyone's willing to jump into all kinds of different positions. Like Beth ran retail for a while. She's a sculptor and a hand builder, right? She had no retail training, but she's smart. She could do it, and so she did. She did a phenomenal job, and so she became a great trainer of our other retail managers. And so a lot of times you have all of these students and you have artists in residence and people flowing through the building, and some of them love the feel of the place so much and the mission and everything that they want to stay, and those are your clear choices, right? They get it.
Right.
They understand what you're trying to do. They love the interaction of the students and people walking in who don't know anything about ceramics, that walking them through every step and making them feel comfortable with art, that's a hard thing to do, and some people can just do it. And so I'm always looking for those people who love a personal interaction and want to make every person who walks in here feel better as they're leaving, right?
Okay.
And so those are the ones we grab. And then sometimes you have to do a national search because we're about to look for an atmospheric resident, right? Someone who soda, salt, wood, all of those is obsessed with that, needs a place to work. And locally, that's a tough find,
Yeah.
And so we're going to do a national search and see whether we can locate someone to run that side of the program.
Okay.
Retail is getting big enough that we did have to do larger searches for our retail manager and someone who's familiar with e-commerce and stuff like that.
Right.
So depending on the size at any given point, that changes.
And how do you kind of build those boundaries so that you're not overworking that base set of staff and keeping it like reasonable with, so they can take advantage of what they offer here, so they can have their own studio time and all that stuff, so that you're not like, okay, let's go get that person that can help with that because they know how to answer that question.
That is constant meetings. So like John, he can handle a huge amount of stuff, but if he doesn't have time to do his own studio practice, he gets very grumpy, right? And you can see that right away, and he's honest with me. He's like, I can't do all of this stuff you're asking me to do and not make my own work, right? I have to balance that. So I know that about John, and we work hard to make sure that that balance is there. Beth can handle anything, any level of stress. And there are certain times when she will come to me and say, I have to have help, right? I have to have help with this. And so we hire somebody. We do, however that needs to work. So I let them know there's always going to be stressful. We're always trying to make this place bigger, better. You can't be a yes organization and not be pushing yourselves all the time, right? But if we keep honest, open communication, this is to a point where it's not as fun as it was. Okay, how do we fix that, right? Whether that's hiring a person, whether that's switching your job, whatever, we do it at that point.
Yeah.
And so I trust them to run their side, but at the same time tell me when it's getting to a point.
And I'm sure it takes a bit to kind of get to that stage where they have that comfortability, because also they feel like you all have been in a unit for so long that some may be like, well, I have to do this for the group, or because I'm the one that's in charge of this, so I have to take on that thing that's needed to be done.
Right. Well, and then
But like you said, the workload's different, what you can handle. So
and it takes. So I'm an idea person, right? So I'm constantly getting these ideas, and I'm wanting to make these connections, and I'm floating that out to the group. And some of the stuff is so important to me. I'm like, yes, we're doing this. Okay, we're doing this. Figure it out. Other times they'll say...
So you commit to the idea, and then you're like, the team, figure out who does it.
Yes. And yes. And then some of the times they will all push back. Like, no, we're not doing this. We cannot.
Because I'm sure there's like 5 really good ideas that could push you all a certain way, and you're like adding a 6th one that could be a huge amount of work, and you're like, do it. And they're like, but I thought these other ideas were so important to you until this one came up yesterday.
Yes.
Like, what?
That is exactly right. And because we're all friends, we can fight. We can, all of that. And at the end of the day, we all respect each other. And so yes, I will push until there is that full-on pushback. And when I walk into the office and 4 of them are sitting there in a circle, I'm like, okay,
intervention time.
Okay, what do I have to lay off of? Yeah, and so that happens sometimes. But the other beautiful thing that happens in a business like this is I have noticed, because people see this as their like, this is the place they have to be every day, right? So many people see this as that when you are struggling, when you need help, someone shows up to help all
because
the time.
They want the Queen City to succeed as a whole.
Yes.
Like, they love the community, so
it's
that they're
amazing.
like, I'm willing to help.
There have been so many times when we've had no computer person, right? And everything's failing. And I just go into the studio, I'm like, does someone know how to work with computers? Because we're at a loss. And there's always... Yeah, I can do that. And they come back and they fix everything just out of the goodness of their heart, just to make stuff work. And I have people who, constantly on the lookout for building supplies that they bring here and just, so that we could keep doing what we're doing. And financially, you're never going to make a ton of money with a business like this, because you're always wanting to improve the space for your students. You're always wanting to add more classes and all of that, which means more teachers. And so even though you're getting giant, it's not like your profit margin is getting much, much bigger.
Yeah.
We are at a point where we can do things right. You're not scraping the bottom of the barrel all the time, but you always rely on the kindness of people to make it work. And I was at a point several years ago where firing, the amount of pots that go through this place is insane, and managing kilns and everything was getting so much. And then I had this student, John Fowler, and he said he was helping us out, volunteering, building the new retail shop at our old building. And he said, Ben, my wife needs me out of the house. I need to be doing something, right? And he was at that point, stay-at-home dad. And he said, do you have anything for me? And so I talked to him. We figured out, that he would start running the firing side of things. Turns out John Fowler is not just amazing at construction, but he's the most patient human being ever. And he told me on multiple occasions, Ben, I like to be a cog. Okay, I like to get a job done. I don't care if I'm running something. I don't care if I'm making big decisions.
Of it,
I want the business to keep chugging along. I like these tasks. And so he runs the firing operation. He helps maintain the kilns. And then all the construction projects we have around the building, he tackles. And having someone like that in an operation like this is so essential.
Yeah, it's great support staff.
Essential,
yeah.
But it's so essential to have those people who want to be a cog and those people who want to make decisions, and all of them respecting each other and working well together. That's how a place this size works.
And then is the staff generally like is the pay like some people are salaried, some people are hourly, and then you just like make schedules that way, and you're like, okay, do some of those people that manage those areas manage the schedules? They figure out when they need their hourly people in and all that stuff.
Yeah, and so at this point now, I cannot be as hands-on as I used to be in every department. I have to let go and let people do things. And so there are people who say, I don't want to be salaried. I want to be hourly, and I only want to work 30 hours a week. I want to have my own studio practice at home, or I have another teaching job, whatever. Okay, we make that work. Chrissy and a couple others, they want to be salaried. They want their thing to be regular, their hours to be regular, and they want the flexibility in there of having a doctor's appointment, not having to worry about that, and all of that type of stuff. And so we attempt to be, as much as we can, a family organization. If you've got kids and your schedule has to be all different, fine, let's make that work. We have enough people to do that. And so that's been another organic thing that's kind of formed over time. So I think I have 7 full-time employees, and then if you count all of the part-time and contract workers, we have around 50.
Okay. In the contract, are the instructors mainly contracted that are not already staff, so it's like 1099 folks?
Yes, there are a lot of 1099 folks that come in, they teach for 2 hours, and they're done. But a lot of them also like to run special events or something like that, and so they might put together 16 or 18 hours a week because they're doing all these different teaching positions, but don't want a full-time thing because they have another full-time job,
right?
They just don't want to spend extra time, and so we try and piece it together so that we can help as many people as possible. But it's been a balancing act, protecting the business, right? Because when you're
they're kind of representing you, right? When they are doing those outings or whatever, and
not just that, but you think about the fact that you want to be really flexible with people with their hours, but then you're running insane amounts of programs, right? And if someone calls the week before, it's like, hey, my friends and I are getting a trip together, and so I can't teach this thing. We're going to go to Colorado. Well, they're not committed, contractually to do anything because we're trying to be flexible. And so that gets difficult, right? And we try and work with students. We want NKU students and UC students and everybody to be a part of this place and get the benefits of all the connections here, and at the same time learn. But at the same, those are students who, when finals week comes along, they can't do anything, right? They got to focus on studying. So that
Is that like
flexibility has been
like some
tough.
students are also like dipping their water and toeing the water a little bit, like, am I gonna like the studio? Do I want to pursue ceramics more, or is this a short term, just kind of
Absolutely.
trial period?
Yeah, and so that rotation is big, and it's different than other business rotations. A lot of times with other businesses, you're hiring and firing like crazy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And here, you're pushing so hard to make everything work, right? So generally, you're not letting people go; they're deciding
To leave,
Yeah,
onward. This was like one
Yeah.
part of their clay experience, and then maybe they get another job or they get a residency or something.
And as a business, you have to be supportive of that. You want the employees to be successful, whether it's here or somewhere else, right? And
Right.
so if they decide, okay, I got to go to grad school. If they decide, okay, I have to do this, then whether it hurts the business or not, you have to 100% back that play.
Mm-hmm.
Give them all the information they need, but back that play. And so, like, the amount of recommendation letters and things like that, it's
Yeah, it's
a
hard
lot.
because you breed the curiosity and all that stuff internally, and then you're like, okay, they get all these skills. You're getting them the skills so that they can leave you in the end potentially, but
Yeah.
but you still want them to get do that so that they're building their own skill set as well as building your business
Right.
better and better, and like a better foundation as well as for the future. So
Yeah. Like, okay, that's JW there. He's a artist in resident here, and I've forced him to stay because he's such a good teacher, right? And the quality of pots and everything is remarkable. And so it's one of those things where, I will give them all the information. I will support them in whatever their next step is, everything, but not that I'm not doing the full court press to get my great teachers to stay.
Right.
And
what is the primary benefits of whether you're staff or you're teaching, and maybe that helps people that are listening that are like, okay, what can I give them potentially that will make them appreciate what they have, I guess?
So when you're looking at the different tiers here, right? If you're working more than 20 hours a week here, no matter what it is, you get access to this, like full access to the studio, and you can sit in on any classes, any workshops you want. You get a discount in the retail shop, and here you have the full support of the staff. 27 kilns. You have the retail shop right down connected to the building. So you can call and say, I need 10 boxes of clay in my studio space tomorrow morning, and they'll be there. So you don't have to stop producing. Plus, you have the gallery that you can use. You have the retail sales gallery that you can use. You got the Wi-Fi connected to the building, so you could run your online store from your studio space. All of that is there. And then you have 250 students that are coming through here every single week that are looking at you, interested in your pots, that type of stuff. So you can start to build a large clientele here. And then you've got the advertising that comes with it, so we'll be placing you on our website for, whatever you're teaching if you want to run a workshop. Plus, we're the yes people, right? So if JW wants to run his own workshop here and he wants to invite whoever, then we're like, yeah, let's figure that out and do it,
Yeah.
And so you're trying to give them everything they need to succeed as a potter and a teacher here. Plus, we have a way of teaching here that is really successful, and so they all get trained on our special events teaching, and it's how I worked with you at NKU, and the way you set up the wheels and how you keep the person sitting at the wheel, and you're working on the opposite side of the wheel, giving people the feel of pulling and centering and everything right away, and trying to give them as many views of hand building techniques and firing techniques as you possibly can, so they find that groove quickly. And so it's the same thing here, so that they get a great chance of becoming an extremely good workshop presenter or teacher in general if they want to end up teaching in college or high school or wherever.
Okay. And then that's anybody 20 hours and up, and that everybody shares that.
Yes.
And then do certain people get like dedicated space or something like that?
You got it. And so if you're a resident, or if you're one of those educators who's here all the time, we have down in the basement, we have big collaborative studio spaces, right? So you have a ton of wheels and working tables and everything, and a stack of shelves that are yours. And so, the more you're involved in the place, the larger your presence can be as far as the support of the staff and everything else to launch you to that next space. And then the artist in residence, that program John Steen's been developing, that's been a big deal where you get a big space upstairs, and we've got multiple kilns there where you could be firing at a huge discount. You get a stipend every month, and then you have teaching requirements and studio requirements, but you're also required to work on your own stuff 20 hours a week, no matter what, with critiques with all the professional staff.
Yeah, this is a great space. We're actually in it right now.
Yeah.
So each person's got about 8 to 10 foot by 10 foot. And they make it their own, and shelving, and it's quiet up here too, so that's why we're recording up here. So it's like you're not like in a huge building and there's people circling all the time and you're distracted and people tap you on the shoulder, and so
and if you want that, then you jump down in the main studio, and the size of this place makes it so there are lots of different zones, but we have, there's at this point over 65 potter's wheels in this building, 42 of them on the main studio floor for classes and special events and everything, and the rest of them spread out through the different booths and areas. And we're about to develop a kids wheel classroom down in the basement that has another 10 wheels and a teaching station. And so the amount of spaces you can take advantage of, as well as the fact that you have Patrick Doherty working downstairs. He has a large studio set up, and he's an earthenware master, glaze master, salt firing master, and you can just go down and hang with him while he's working during the day, and learn architectural ceramics or his glaze patterning work or anything. That's another huge bonus.
Okay, so I wanted to ask about you kind of touched on all the different kind of services you all have. Can you mention just in a list, I guess, of what are the different services or offerings you all have as a business?
Yes. So there's a lot. So okay, the retail shop. You can buy anything you could ever want for ceramics out of the retail shop.
So that's like tools and stamps and clay and cone packs and shelves and everything.
Brushes and glazes and kilns and wheels and slab rollers and shelving units and anything that any of our 80 suppliers sell. And so we've got that, but everything here is based on education. So you can also just walk into the retail shop as someone who's never touched clay before, and the retail staff will talk you through, how to pick a clay, how to pick a glaze, what firing temperature to go to, what, why you would pick one firing temperature over another. So they're trying to give you an education so that this isn't a scary thing, it's a fun thing, Then we have the pottery painting studio down there. So if you just wanted to come in for, an hour and glaze a pot that's already made, you've got that set up there. If you wanted to have a birthday party or anything, you could do that. You move into the main studio, and there we offer every type of class you could imagine. Every level of wheel throwing, hand building, and sculpture, plus specialty classes. So class for drinkers, where you have a bartender come in, they talk about the perfect mojito, and then they say, this is the style glass we would want it from. You try the mojito they make, and then you go back to the studio and you make that perfect vessel that they say. And every week is a different, local bartender or something that you talk through, right? Or a class for bakers where everyone brings in a family recipe and you decide on the perfect pot for that recipe. And you create that for them, and then all together at the end you have a huge party with all the food, and you create a cookbook with the beautiful pictures of the recipes in the pots, right? So you're trying to make connections through those educational programs, different loves of different people all smashed together with clay. And then you have workshops in that same space, and parties, right? So you could have a day out of the office where GE brings in some engineers, and they all have to try wheel throwing for that day while hanging out, having a meeting, and eating some food together.
Yeah.
Or just a kid's birthday party, or Girl Scouts coming in and getting their badge for clay, that type of thing. All of that's possible in the education department. You could bring pots from outside and ask us to fire them any temperature for, a price per pound for the pots. And we offer that service all year round. Field trips. So high schools, middle schools, homeschool groups, anybody can come in with a group, learn the potter's wheel, hand building, raku firing, all kinds of different techniques for a 4-hour or 2-hour field trip. We have specialty classes where people who've never tried the wheel before can come in for an open wheel night. We do that every Friday and Saturday. We do family open wheels as well during the day. And then we do specialty hand building projects for all kinds of different holidays, so that you can try that type of stuff out. Valentine's Day, Ghost is playing in the background. You've got a little photo area, and everyone's trying to wheel while,
Right.
sipping champagne and eating chocolate, and that type of fun stuff. And then we have a mold making service. And so we work with several businesses to create urns. And at the same time, if you have a specific pot that you want to mass produce, you can come in and talk to us, and we can help you through that mold service too.
Wow. I didn't know that was. I saw the urns downstairs, but I didn't know that was like.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's a very small part of the business, or.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that came out of. When the pandemic hit and we had to shut down our entire studio and the retail shop at the same time, because Cincinnati Public is our largest customer and they closed down, right? So
Yeah.
the whole business shut down. I mean, I'm pretty recession proof here, but I am not pandemic proof. And with that side of the business, one person could be in here running a slip casting company, and creating forms, talking to people over Zoom, doing link, sending designs just over the computer, and that way that side of the business wouldn't shut down. We were trying to figure out how to keep employees going through a process like that, and so
Right.
that type of thing, and several other make it and take it or deliver and do Zoom class type
Right.
models were designed through there. So we have lots of those types of programs too, where you can pick up a bisque set, take it with you, and then we do a Zoom lesson with you on how to decorate those things. And then you drop them
okay.
off, we fire them, and that type of thing. So we've got that side as well. And then I'm trying
What
to
about
think.
this? Like the business of this part here.
So the rental spaces, right. So we have several different tiers of rental spaces, and this upper room where the artists in residence are, there are also potters who take things a little more seriously than our general students, and so they can rent a space up here, and they can do whatever they want with the space. I mean, we have a brewer over here making beer, and we have a printmaker over there, and we have a painter, and then we have a lot of ceramic artists, right? And
Right.
so they could run their business out of here using the Wi-Fi. We have some that are making for local restaurants that crank up here, and we have a whole line of kilns that they can use, or they could bring their own kiln, and they pay to set it up, but then firings are free once the electrics run.
Wow.
And so there's that set up here. If you go down to the main studio, you could rent a half booth or a full booth if you like being in the mix of everybody, but at the same time you need more storage. So that gives you more
And
shelving.
I'm sure it's cheaper than renting a private space that's just for you.
You got it.
Yeah.
You got it. And so there's that side of the business as well. And then we do our outreach programs. And so we go to public libraries and do programs, and we'll go to summer camps out of the building and do programs, after school programs where we go to the school. And then we have a large summer camp set up for kids. And that doesn't just deal with ceramics. It deals with fashion, painting, drawing, paper mache, anime, all that stuff is possible through the kids' camps.
Okay. And then
So,
you mentioned
lots.
you all do some, like people come in and they're like, I don't know what I'm doing with, like you buy a kiln you need it set up, or if you got some electrical issue or something like that. do you all offer that? And you mentioned the firings if they bring stuff to you.
Yes. And so aside from firing people's pots, we do offer setup.
And do y'all do that for schools a lot too? If they're like,
tons of
they're
schools.
like, I got this budget, I don't know what to do with it, I don't know what supplies I need.
Yeah, and we've also done consulting where someone's building a home studio. How do I do that? What do I need? We can talk them through all of that. We do kiln repair, wheel repair, off-site raku firings, for people who are just getting interested and want to try something they can do in their backyard type thing. So all of that as well, and you can bring your equipment in here, and we have a repair area in here.
Okay. And you just have dedicated staff that has that skill set. Do they have to have like licensing or something? Like,
they don't.
Electrical stuff is kind of weird, right?
Yeah, they don't. So we have a certified electrician, Becky Geiger, who when there is a school that calls and they're like, there's something wrong with our kiln, we don't know what it is, here's the problem, and we think, okay, that could be in the wall, that could be a lot of different things, it's not just a cut and dry kiln repair. Then Becky goes out, because she will figure out whether there's a problem with the school's electric, whether it's a power cord issue, or whether it's the kiln issue, and she's certified to do all of that. If it's a straight up, hey, I need my elements switched out, well, several of us have been to scut training and whatever, and can gut a kiln and put it back together without thinking about it. And so we have that. And then we've gone through training with Brent wheels as well, which transfers to basically all the wheels.
Yeah.
And so you understand the workings of that. So I can do.
It's not
basic wheel repair
intimidating
as
once
well.
you've repaired a number of them. And
no, there's always that massive respect for electric because it is scary there. But no, when you understand how a kiln functions and you're taking the proper safety precautions, then
right.
it is, I love it. It's really cool
Yeah.
to be able to disassemble a kiln and put it back together,
right.
and understand what everything does.
Yeah. So y'all have a lot of scuts on site. We're sponsored by L&L, so I have to mention L&L. But
We
do you
have
all
3
service
L&Ls.
L&Ls?
Yeah.
Oh, you do have L&Ls.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have 3 L&Ls on site, and yes, we service L&Ls. I know how to do that, and
Okay.
and yeah, we even though we are not a supplier for L&L, because generally they're regional, right? And
Right.
so there are other regional companies that are like us that are L&L suppliers. We still know what's great about L&L kilns and can deal with our customers so that they understand what
Okay.
their choices are and why. And yes,
Is
we
there,
can fix L&L.
So we've been talking about the channels lately. Does that, I would suspect that speeds up your getting the elements replaced and all that. I don't know if you get service calls to replace elements for those, but
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And so what we took over as far as what Annie had already built here, right? And kept going with, it made sense for us to stretch out with a similar type of kiln so that when we do repairs, it's all the same stuff. But when we're going out, there are specific things with L&L kilns that you need to be able to do, and parts that you have to understand as far as being delicate with, or how to properly switch out elements, and what the benefits of an L&L element replacement are compared to a scut replacement. So we talk through that with everyone who does kiln repairs so that everyone understands that. And we have a couple of people up here in the space where we're recording, that I want, perfect zone control with my thing, and I want, this
the
margin
3
of error to be
thermocouples
tiny, right?
Yeah.
And so the Matt, who is Matthew Plays with Fire on Instagram,
he's big on Instagram.
Yep, he's got his L&L hooked up here.
Oh, okay.
Yep, Genesis controller and the whole deal. Yeah.
Sweet. Okay. I'm gonna get one from NCECA. They're bringing me one, and I'm gonna get one there. So it'll have
Nice.
the Genesis and all that stuff. So
Very cool.
all right, we'll bookend that with saying find your L&L kilns at hotkilns.com. Thanks, L&L. Okay. So about so we've just mentioned all the different types of the business. Is there, if you're like a growing ceramic studio and you all are years past where a lot of them are in their infancy and kind of getting going, is there certain parts of that, those different things you all offer that you would say is better for the business, maybe long term or that medium term, whether it's like managing how many staff you need to do this part of the business or profitability?
So that's a great question. And what I have always looked at as the success of this business as we've been growing is if you are forming a studio or if you have a smaller studio, in order to control it long term, you need to figure out how to own the place you are in. Renting is so hard in controlling your space and knowing what your finances are going to look like in 5 or 6 years, because you don't know how that rent increase is going to go. You don't know if your area is going to, all of a sudden become more valuable because of investment. And so owning the place is key if you can. But initially, if you can't, having a retail shop where you are a distributor of certain companies' stuff, right? So that you get that discount and then can pass that on to your students. That's huge. If you are having to buy all of the things you need for your studio at full retail price, I don't know how you make it. I don't. So having that distributorship for even a small amount of things that then you can pass on to your students is important, because then as your student body grows, they're supporting your retail shop as well as the fact that you're selling to local places.
Is that a agreement you come to with a company like Kentucky Mudworks, that you're saying, hey, we want to offer your products, here's what we'd like for our students, and you get that agreement so that you get that price? Or is there some official thing that you have to have designated to say that you can distribute and you're going to sell it?
You can do it either way. If you have a big local distributor or supplier that's willing to make a deal with you on that end, then that's great. Otherwise, you do need to call companies and say, listen, I'm setting up a ceramics retail shop and I would like to be a distributor of your product, right? And then it is an official thing. Some companies will honor a region, right?
So like
Standard
they're
ceramics
already...
and Scut and everything.
Okay.
Yeah, they will say, and those larger companies will say, all right, you're our distributor for this area. We will support you any way we can. We're not going to set up a distributorship across the street. There are other companies that are so big that they don't care about that, right? And so they'll do a distributorship right across the street, and you guys figure it out, right? So you can, as a company, figure out what works best for you and what you believe in and what you're willing to really push, but that helps out a huge amount. So having the education department and the retail shop right together has helped us immensely, and made things work really, really well.
And is that a lot of that just convenience because the students are right there, that like why would they go elsewhere for maybe a little bit better price when it's like right
exactly.
on site?
I mean, you
it's
imagine,
like, I need this tool.
Right, you're in class and you can't find your needle tool, or someone demonstrates a product and you're like, oh my God, those are the pots I've been wanting to make. You could walk 20 feet and buy that product and walk back in and instantly be using it. So that even beats whatever deal you have online.
Sure, you
right?
can shop around, but do you
Yes.
want to spend that time to do that? Or...
Yes, and so it does. You have a built-in clientele, and you're in it together, right? So you want to be good for that clientele, and so you end up, that makes the retail shop better. And
you're not doing it because you have to sell more mud tools, ribs,
Right.
or whatever, because you make the highest profit margin on mud tools. So you're like, okay, we got to make sure we're always throwing in mud tools in there.
Yeah. Yeah, and so it works really well to have that balance right there. So that when the studio's doing well, it picks up the retail shop, right? When the retail shop's doing well, it eases tensions on the studio if you have lower student numbers. And so that's a beautiful thing to have. And then with the firing process, you cannot, what happened before with the business in its infancy, early days, I was saying
Infancy.
that. Yes, infancy, is that Annie had a certain amount of glazes that she was offering, right? And specific firings she was offering because it cost her money when the students' pots ran onto the shelf and she had to chip that away or buy a new shelf or, any of those big glaze problems or clay body problems.
So you just eliminate those glazes that are problematic and you just shrink it down to the ones.
Yeah, and she tightened everything, right? This is what you have to do. even if it costs you money to chip those shelves or whatever, you have to allow for learning. You have to allow for people to get excited about things and try lots of different things. So you have to actually do the opposite and open it up. Okay, you've got to have a studio where when you walk in, you feel like the sky's the limit that day, and anything you want to learn, you can learn.
It's not unless you match those rules that are
Right.
listed up on the wall.
And you can't be scared to get a pink slip on your shelf that says you owe $28 because you screwed this thing up and don't ever do this again, right? It's got to be like, we all make mistakes, and you give them the best education you can to limit those mistakes. It's on you, and you can always find those people who aren't getting it, right? And then pull them aside and say, let's do a private lesson because this is really important. This is what's happening, right? We don't want you losing pots, so let's figure this out together. But you don't limit those options and make them so tight. So that was another huge thing that was a success for our business, is opening up the whole studio and saying, let's learn everything. Let's try all the stuff.
Yeah.
And it makes it a blast. The students are excited, you're excited, it's fun to come in and teach, you're learning new things because the students are like, how do you do this? And with Instagram and TikTok, there's so much information and so many different techniques that we have now started teaching classes called Monkey See, Monkey Do, where the students bring in, they're like, how do you do this? And we figure it out and we
That's
teach
funny.
it.
That's funny.
And so it's all of those things make it so that it's an energy-filled atmosphere, and that fuels sales too, because when they're trying new things, they're buying new things. And it's not that you have to say like, hey, we're selling this today. It doesn't matter, because it's all just education, and you want something to make this pot easier. So that fuels, it ends up fueling sales and makes your business do better if you are more open and creating that energy.
Yeah, because I would suspect that can also get really tasking as the decision maker of like, okay, they want to do this or they want to do this, and you're like, how do we support them?
Yeah.
But also like not get so loaded with so many options. But
Yeah.
like you said, you're a yes man, so it's hard for you to build up those boundaries. And
Right.
Like,
and my staff again will say, okay, I know that you want to have this open, but this right here, this little section of it is killing us. So we have to put rules here. Okay, yeah. Fine. But they allow me to push it really far before they say we need boundaries here, because this cannot feel like a corporate environment.
Yeah. Them taking on the brunt of all the yeses that you're going to say, like, you're not going to feel all of that, and then it funnels down to the people that are feeling it the most, which are probably the main, like, holding the business up for the most part, right?
Yeah.
Like, keeping it going.
You got it. Yep. And so the thing that we're dealing with now, I mean, this business has evolved so much, and it's doing really well, and I feel like the studio's humming at this point, but when it's this big, now we have got this new issue of continuing to have the wonderful community that we've always had, where everyone's sharing ideas and supporting each other, and you have old and young talking to each other and people from every background. You have to preserve that so well that now it's 50,000 square feet. People are spread out. Some people aren't seeing each other every day like they used to. So we are now having to look at events and critique times and things like that, to where you're bringing people together in different ways to share ideas. It's very easy to get into like all the people who always take Tuesday night class hanging out together, and there's like that group, and it's hard to break into that group. We can't have that, right? So
and there's so many offerings that you could be like, well, I'm interested in this thing. Oh, well, this thing's on a different day, but I'm really more interested in this. So then you get split up, and then you're like, maybe we'll see each other on an off day in the studio together. But
You got it. And so offering gallery openings where you pair with a nonprofit, right? And some of the proceeds go to them and they help you get people to the gallery, right? So you're sharing ideas
Right.
there. That introduces clay to new people. And then they are like, oh, I could take a wheel throwing class. Oh my God, right?
Yeah.
And so you're coming up with creative ideas of getting people, continuing to get people from every background into the studio so that that sharing process is still there, and you're constantly trying to keep that wonderful community aspect alive. And so that's our push now, is to make sure that you're not losing that by creating lots of fun meeting spaces and creating times for people that might not necessarily walk past each other in the studio every week because they're here at different times. Get them to mingle and discuss and
Okay.
come up with ideas.
Let's
together.
say you're in a studio that's limited on space, and you know, is there a, maybe you offer classes, but you also offer like membership rental.
Yes.
Is there pros, cons, or like, is there one that maybe more, because you got to have a space to keep going and be profitable before you can offer members spaces that are dedicated. Like, is there a way that you would approach that?
So yes, and that's can all be done through scheduling, right? Think about the fact that simply putting a keypad on the studio space allows you to give people 24-hour access if they need, right? And so you can have your classes offered at specific times where you have students coming in, and those members you want to rent or charge a little more for that ability to come in anytime they want. They see that class schedule. They know when things are going to be filled up. But at the same time, encourage those people to come in and help out with the classes, because they might not just love making and being a part of the studio. They most likely would love sharing their knowledge as well. So then you're building community and maximizing your rental income and offering all the classes you want at the same time.
Right.
And so simple solutions like that make a big difference. You want to activate that studio space 24 hours a day if you possibly can. And right now, we have, coming out of the pandemic, everyone wants a hands-on thing, right? So we are pulling our hair out, trying to figure out how to activate the studio in all those times, because we have so many special event requests, you know, and
Right.
and
Yeah, the
you want
scheduling's gotta
to,
be
you want to be
hectic.
true to your students. You want to give them time to practice, and that's another one. I'm so glad I said that. Is you cannot learn ceramics by coming into a 2-hour class and then not coming back until the next week to that 2-hour class. So the success in our studios comes with open practice times. If you are in an 8-week class session, you get unlimited access to the studio the entire time we're open, that whole 8 weeks.
Is there dedicated spaces that are like flex for those people to come in, or because it seems like they're scheduling like crazy, right?
Right.
So how do
and
you?
so we put out class announcements and we say, here's the special events that are going on this week. This is how many people are going to be in them. So they know when those
it's
pack
just back
times
to
are.
scheduling
And if
and-
they come in and there's not a wheel available, maybe they go in and they come up with their glaze plan for when their pots come through the kiln.
There you go. Yeah.
Or they try, hand building something, or, they can use other parts of the studio, but they know when those pack times are. And if they're in there all the time, and you have teachers who are floating around most of the time, because a lot of our full-time staff are also teachers, then we tell them at the beginning of the class session, I don't care if we're carrying a bunch of boxes to the warehouse and it looks like we're real busy. I guarantee you we'd rather be helping you figure out a problem than doing whatever we're doing for that task. So we will set those boxes
Okay.
down, help you out, and then go finish
And
our
there's a
task.
shared agreement to that from staff that it's
From
like
staff.
this is what we're gonna do.
And there
versus,
are,
like,
obviously there are some times when you say, I
gotta
cannot
get
help
this
right
in.
now, but I promise you I'll be back in 15 minutes and we'll figure
Okay.
this out, right? But you're there for the students, and you're trying to rocket launch their learning by that.
Okay.
Because especially wheel throwing, which is kind of the gateway drug for ceramics,
Right.
right, is frustrating at the beginning if you don't have the support you need. And very few people will make it through that beginning process and love the project if they don't get through that centering, opening, first basic pulls stage a little
Yeah.
quicker.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure that could get kind of crazy with I just picture everybody like walking around like getting tapped on the shoulder left and right, and you're like, what was I supposed to be doing today? But I guess it depends on what. That's why you work during the day, and then a lot of people probably are there in the evening, so you get.
And not just that, but there are certain staff members that love that personal interaction, right? All the time. And I'm one of them. I'm like the king of that. And there are others who don't so much. And the others who don't so much are in the office, right? Or in their office. They're getting that work done. And when they are out in the studio, it's when they have the capacity to deal with that, right?
Right.
With me, I can handle 112 interruptions a day talking to those people, and I enjoy every single one of them. And the students know that, and the staff knows that. So if they're stressed out, they can say, I can't help you right now, but Ben is right there, right? And then I take
I was surprised when I reached out for the podcast stuff. You were like, I'm in Africa. You're like, I'll be back on this date. You're like, reach out to them if you need help. I'm like, all right, I'll contact you when you're back in a few days. And you email me back like when you're home.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, what? I'm sure he's got a ton of emails that are way more important than this. But
no, it's we try and balance it. This is fun, right? This is out of the ordinary for me, and so it's a really nice way to start the day. And then
okay. Yeah. So do you all also? So personally, I buy clay from you all. I buy raw materials from you all. Is there a sense of like how you all supply other people, and do you do a lot with like have their own home studios, and they're just kind of using you all for the supplies that you provide because you all have everything they need?
Yes.
Versus like, okay, maybe I'm not in the community studio space taking classes and all that stuff.
Yeah, we support a ton, and actually there are a lot of our previous students who decide to get a little more serious about it and decide to dedicate their garage to their home studio and everything. And so they're no longer students here, but they still come into retail and ask questions all the time, and they get their materials. And same with the local universities and stuff like that. You know, you have constant rotating professors and whatever else that we want to help out. So we talk them through what they need, deliver materials to their door if they need to, any of that. So there's a big hobby potter market out there now, and professional potters who are working in their own spaces, especially out of the pandemic. I mean, so many
I'm sure so many people getting wheels and getting kilns. And then your expertise is like, okay, well, they're going to get this, then they're going to need shelves, then they're going to need to know how to get elements. And like
that whole deal. So just, again, falling back on that education side, just be open to answer any questions and help people get to that next step.
Okay.
That's where we are. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I just blanked on what I was going to ask next. Oh, and then the events that, like, I sell at the Holiday Bazaar, and you all have selling opportunities for students. Are those for me, those seem like good ways for students that don't normally sell. You're like, hey, you don't need a tent and all this stuff.
Right.
You can just set up, sell your stuff, hang out with people you already see all the time, or maybe it's the first time that you get everybody together that are students that don't, like you said, they pass by each other.
Right.
It's a nice way to...
And so that's the thing. Like, we do a really good job of getting people super excited about ceramics, and they get into it, right? And then pretty soon they're like, I have 150 pots, you know. And the local Clay Alliance has... those sales are amazing, right? They're great, and they're good for serious hobby potters and professional potters. And so, again, falling back to the education side, we want to give the students an opportunity to do a very low stress show where we do a pricing workshop so they understand that. And you also say, this is not something you should be selling. Right? These are the pots you should be selling, because some of them don't know. And we've had those people who are like, well, this fell, but it's really cool. You know, should I glaze it? No, you should not. You know, have some respect for the time you've spent, you know, learning this stuff, and put out your best work for sale. And don't have that bargain basket with stuff that fell, you know, and that type of thing. So we're giving them that type of education and pricing and putting it in a place, again, where you're trying to take the fear out of it. And then if they want to get more serious at that point and then try the Clay Alliance sales and things like that, then they're ready. And we can support them with, okay, here's how you would set up your booth, and here are the things to think about. But it's, again, a little gateway sale.
Right. Okay. I knew what I was gonna. I was gonna ask about. You kind of touched on the move earlier. If somebody's setting up a studio, what are some of the things that you had to figure out? Obviously, it's different because you own the building now, so I'm sure there was a lot of logistical things and like you said permits and things like that. What are some things that they're gonna run into setting up? If you're renting, they might run into, but if you're owning as well.
So if you're owning, number one, the thing that was a big surprise is that the county, the city, they do not understand a large ceramic studio. This is not something they've ever seen.
Kilns
they
are
don't,
like, what?
Yes, they don't. Yeah, it sounds like a logistical nightmare for them. Like these things that are getting to over 2,000 degrees and clay going down the pipes. Like, oh my God, no, you should not set this up. And so, talking to officials and talking to the permit office to explain who you are, what you're doing, bring them to your location and show them what a kiln looks like and what your requirements are. And then everything requires engineered drawings, right? You can't just set up and go. So for us with this building, we had to have engineered drawings of every single plug, where every kiln was going, where every sink was going to be, every outlet, and that is mind-boggling.
Much less just how you're thinking fun when you go into. You're like, how are we going to want to organize a studio? Where do we want the education at? Where do we want the private studios at? It's like, no, bare bones. Like, before you do any of those walls and setting things up.
Yes,
put
and
shelving.
You set yourself up for growth, but having those important meetings where you're explaining who you are, what you're doing, and they get to experience. I brought most of them in to try a wheel throwing event, so that they could see the fun and the community and everything, and then they weren't so against everything we were offering. And so at that point, we started to get some movement, right?
Yeah.
And so it took a couple of different drawings to get the place put together. And once we got construction going, sinks were an issue. I wanted to have large sinks for multiple people to go up and wash their stuff out. I have plaster traps under every single sink. Then the plumbing goes through that plaster trap, goes down into our basement, into these huge conical tanks that then settle clay so that I can always slip out the bottom of the conical tanks and clean water comes out the top. It goes through 4 filters before
so you had to
it ever
get
hits
those
the city.
conical things and all that? Or
I designed that in order to be able to reuse the slip that's coming down, so that we just keep making clay out of it. And so that's another great one for people setting up studios. Have a recycling program where all of the scrap that your students are using, and I'll use all cone 6 and cone 10 clay bodies, have all of the scrap go into bins that then you can take back, mix, and pug back out, and then use those pugged logs for events and everything else.
Yeah, those special events, they don't know anything about the differences in clay. They're just like, oh, this is
exactly
what clay
and
feels like?
Honestly, when you're mixing those clays together and pugging them, keeping them in their wet state, it's great clay to use. You can make anything out of it. But at the same time, a big portion as you grow is going to be your waste. How do you deal with the amount of slip and scrap clay and everything?
Yeah.
So I wanted to design this so that we're not wasting stuff. We're not having to throw clay away or anything crazy like that. We're always reusing it. And so that's what this whole system was set up for. Explaining that to the county was a whole nother issue. And it took a year and a half to get them to understand and allow us to put that in to provide super clean water for the sewer.
Yeah, you're doing all this extra work for them.
Right. They didn't understand it, didn't believe it would work.
They're like, well, just don't dump it down the sink.
Yes.
But it's like,
yeah. And so we got that figured out. There are other studios that have to mix all of their scrap with concrete and throw it away. That's what the city asked them to do. And so we are trying to reuse it. We are trying to, we want to eventually reuse all our water from the studio, recycle it, and send it back up to the sinks. So that's a possible thing that we're doing. And we're looking at solar to deal with the electric kilns and everything. And so all of those processes are, in our 5-year plan to get everything done. But those all help out, when setting up the studio, just making sure that you have an answer for where all of this clay is going.
Okay. And then when you're renting, some of those come off the table. You don't need all the plug things, but I guess you got to figure it out with your landlord of like what they're willing to
Yes.
flex on. And okay, we need this electrical hookup. Like,
Right.
we'll pay for it. Here's a person that can come and do it, but here's what we're going to need and vent.
And also them understanding that these kilns are in schools everywhere, right? Stuck in custodial closets and stuff. And the level of accidents is just non-existent. I mean, kilns are generally safer than your oven at home. You know, they need to understand that. They need to understand that you know what you're doing, and that you're, you know, obviously you don't want to put your own studio in harm's way. So
Right.
It's so much communication, letting people understand what you're doing, you know.
And I'm guessing there's some individuals too that you got to play a little carefully, like be nice, like don't piss somebody off, because they could be the controller of whether you get to do something or not. So it's like,
and most of the time, if you're dealing with like a good old boy network, and some of these groups, the same people have been in this spot forever, and they do not want to deal with anything out of the norm, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we literally heard people from the water district saying that have you seen that hippy dippy clay studio down the street? Like, that was in their head. That's who we are. They came around and they saw that we are like this big public studio where everyone's having fun, and their kids can come and have a great time and whatever. But it takes this, you have to not only show that you are a community player and you want the best for this region, but the other thing you have to know, or let them understand, is you're not trying to break the rules. You're trying to follow everything that they lay out there to the T, but you also need to run a studio. So you have to have, the two of you have to come up with solutions.
Why would you go through all of this work for all the,
Yeah, and so if you have to go to the mayor and say, we've got this great place, it's going to be such a fun, inspirational place for the community, and all we need is a path for getting these permits and making sure that we're following the rules. That's all we want. And they understand that, then things go more smoothly,
Right. Okay. On a separate note, we kind of touched on the education. We touched on a lot of education, but for people trying to get the word out there and get more people in the building, maybe you don't have that issue now because you all have a constant flow of people. Maybe you do have the issue of like having to keep up with the supply that you need of students. How do you all approach that and try to get the word out about what you offer?
So we have been very lucky in that word of mouth has always taken care of that for us. Now, that being said, there are other programs and workshops that we've always needed to get the word out for. But as far as the classes have been concerned, it's almost been a constant waiting list.
And is that just because Annie's Mud Pie and then Funky's, and like it's the constant of like you all are the place over in Hyde Park or now in Norwood is like
you got it, and the students are having fun and they're telling their friends and their friends want to take part and they want their family involved and so it grows organically like that. But with advertisement, I mean, we're in the age of social media, and so as far as getting the information out quickly for programs, you have to deal with social media. You have to, and so we're attempting to dabble with TikTok, and we've had Instagram presence for quite a while, and people don't call, they message us on Facebook all hours of the day and night, and so the staff, whoever's awake at that point answers the thing, or like we all try and tackle that together, but most of it has been just social media trying to put that out there. Well, I have had radio spots and things like that, and I've never been able to tell whether they've proven really successful.
Yeah, a good ROI or not. You're like, hey, how'd you hear about this? Radio, in addition to the 10 other things that I've heard about you all. Or it is a lot of word of mouth, right? It's a lot of like, oh, I took a class here, and like I get questions at shows and stuff, and I'm like, they're like, where can I do this or that? And I'm like, well, I teach you Baker Hunt, but here's what they offer. And then I'm like, if you're looking for something else that's like really has a lot of options, and maybe they want to do the outside class time and do something like that. So I'll be like, Queen City Clay's an option, Core Clay's an option. Here, luckily we're here in Cincinnati that there's like 5 options.
Right.
And it's not, a limitation.
No problem.
No. And
Right,
that's
Siri.
that's a fun thing with Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky is when you talk about the fact that you have multiple studios here, right?
Mm-hmm.
All community minded who want to give support to local artists. This is a great place to set up a studio because it's cheaper than the coasts, right? And you've got all the support you need. And when you can sell online and use the social media to improve your business, there's no reason to be in certain locations where you're paying so much in rent you can't make a living,
Right.
So I do love this area because of that, and
Yeah.
and generally look at all of the players around and think like people are crazy not to be here in Cincinnati and doing
right.
the stuff, but
Right.
that's unbiased.
Okay. Yeah. And like also you mentioned the community stuff too. So like I look at, maybe I haven't taken class here, but I'm like, I know the people that teach the classes and I know the people who run the studio. So I'm like, they're cool people. I trust them. I like what they're doing. I don't feel like it's, out of something I want to recommend of like, hey, you should go take a class here, because the people that are there running things, I trust them. I know what they're in it for the right reasons and stuff like that. And like, they're going to give you a good time.
Yeah.
And they have all the resources you need. So,
Right.
I think that's something great y'all are doing. So,
And now we got the conference coming.
yeah,
And,
we should definitely touch on that here. So, how have you been involved in NCECA coming to Cincinnati? I know it's been years in the making. And
So I, back when Tom owned the business and I was education director, I started the process of trying to get NCECA here. Filling out a huge packet called all the local studios, universities, everything, to get letters of intent saying that they would fully support the conference if it came here, and they would provide gallery shows and everything else. Talk to all the gallery members, and we would get these packets together.
this is just prerequisite stuff before you're just
Yes.
showing interest in like,
Yes,
we
just showing
want you
interest,
to come
saying
here.
like Cincinnati's awesome, the art museum's ready to go. Let's get this conference here. It took 7 or 8 variations of that packet and different players and the convention center and I started working with the local group that got the World Choir Games to Cincinnati. We started sending our packets with like Grater's ice cream and things like that, and finally we got some NCECA board members to come and look at the city. And Dory was the first one. I took Dory around and we showed her Washington Park and Fountain Square, and went to Salazar where we were eating off of Bethany Rose Pottery.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And my sculptures were up on the wall, and we went to Mazunte where the all guacamole dishes are local potters, and we were showing that like this city is ready. And after that, they took Cincinnati seriously and said, yes, this is going to be a thing. And so we got the call for yes, we're coming to Cincinnati, and then disaster, Then so we finally got that done, and then the pandemic
When
hit.
was the call? Is that like a 2-year out thing, or is that like a 1-year out thing?
It was a 2-year out thing, and then the pandemic, and so it had to be
It was originally scheduled in 2020, correct?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Or 2021. I think Richmond might have been 2020 because it got
Yeah.
canceled last minute.
Yeah, I can't remember.
It's hard to
So
piece
much
the
has
numbers
happened.
together.
Yeah, but then getting the news that they were, going to try and honor contracts with the local places and come right back for a physical one. That was it. So it's been like 10 years in the making, and finally got it here. And so when we talked about on-site liaison position, Marcia Karagasian and Lisa Marita Pates were that first set, and they got put through the ringer because of the pandemic and just like having to constantly change decisions and everything.
Yeah.
And that was very difficult. But in the second go-around with the physical NCECA, Pam and Cal, like Pam Kravitz, for those of your listeners that don't know, like Cincinnati will have a parade for her birthday because like she does so much work for the art community here, and just knows everybody. She knows the heads of and Cal, they own the heads of like every gallery and every museum, and are just major players, and they were just a natural choice to get things going fast, because it wasn't like you have 5 years to plan this thing, right? You got a couple years, and you got to.
And there's a lot of hangover from the 2021 year, where it's like we put all this work in, and then you get things stripped and removed and watered down, and then you're like, okay, we got to go through this again.
Yeah, and I've been to a lot of NCECAs, and I was so passionate about it coming here, and so sat down with Pam and early on and said, here's what I always pictured for what the city could do, and we talked about the getting support from the local breweries and coffee shops and that program, and we talked about how do we get the zoo and the aquarium and Crone and all of these cool places involved, and can we make this something that when NCECA comes and then goes away, that the city is still inspired and more people get clay experiences. And so that's where the big open clay setup down at Imagination Alley came from, was trying to just get the public involved. This isn't just for the potters, this is for everyone who's interested in art locally, to see some amazing world-renowned stuff and then go try a clay experience and continue to support the local clay community over time. And so we sat down, we wrote down all these ideas, and then Pam and Cal just knocked it out of the park. I mean, they have done everything. And I think what has been so exciting is that this is going to be the most diverse as far as representation and inclusion and everything of any NCECA I've ever seen. And it's them. They're working day and night to make
having
sure
that focus
happens.
On like that's one of the values we really care about.
Right. And it's a great city to do it. And so I'm so fired up for this. And they have done such a phenomenal job. And so now the clay community just has to show up and enjoy themselves, And so we've done as many improvements as we can to this building and getting the kilns ready to go. And we've got 5 gallery shows coming here. We've got a pre-conference workshop that's going on that Monday, Tuesday. Lisa Orr on Friday is going to be test firing a kiln in
Who's
the back.
in the pre-conference workshop if people want it? This is going to come out like the weekend before NCECA, I think. So
we got Josh Deweese, Dita Mert, Margaret Bowles, and Shalene Valenzuela are all coming, and 2 of them are going to present on Monday, and 2 of them are going to present on Tuesday, and we're going to have the whole studio open, so it's a hands-on. So then they'll hang out and help you out on the wheels or hand building with your own projects afterward, which should be amazing. So we got masters on the wheel and hand building and with surface. Should be absolutely phenomenal, and registration's open for that. But then Lisa Orr will be test firing this kiln in the back, this new design that she has using an old electric kiln shell on Friday. And we should be getting a lot of people through the building, but it's going to be some great stuff. I'm super excited. And then we'll have 3 booth spaces at the convention center in the exhibition hall, and for our shop we'll be doing demos there plus full retail. And then we're also setting up the make-in space as kind of a Queen City Clay at the exhibition hall.
Oh, okay. Is that like a sponsorship sort of deal where you're hosting it? Or you're just providing the equipment and everything for it?
Yeah, we're just helping set it up and we're staffing it. And so it's such a great thing where everybody experiences this who's gone to NCECA, where you go there, you get a million ideas, and then you have to wait to get home to try your ideas. So this is a studio space set up at the convention center. We'll have 10 wheels there. Some, I think 2 accessible wheels, and then 8 just regular sit-down wheels. And hand building tables and shelves, bats and plaster boards and 2,000 pounds of clay and everything that you'd want. So that if you want to collaborate, if you just want to try an idea, if you just want to put headphones on and not pay attention and just zone out for a little bit in that room, you can do that. And then we'll have teachers there at all times. So maybe you've never tried the wheel before and you just want to go in there and get a quick
Right.
lesson. We got people to help you out with that. And if you don't want to be bothered, they're just there to show you where the tools are and stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay.
And so that's Thursday and Friday at the convention center. And so yeah, it would be a lot going on.
Are there open times that people could come see Queen City Clay itself? I know you're going to staff the vendor hall, and that's probably going to be a lot of your on-site staff that's helping with that. But do you all have people that are?
We have 36 volunteers here, as well as a full staff here in the shop. So we
Okay.
will be open 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. with retail open 10 to 8 every day
Wow,
of
okay.
NCECA. So yeah, because we've got 5 different shows here, we'll just be open and ready to party all
Right.
times. And then John, our education director, and his wife have a show in Northside that opens up on Wednesday night, and then we have our giant opening for those shows on Thursday night here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, because I think one thing that I really liked from the Minneapolis one was going to Northern Clay Center and seeing their studio.
Yeah.
And just seeing what's possible when you have this much space of like, some places are like, I can't even afford to have like a small studio because it's so expensive, but it's like,
Right.
whether it's, hey, maybe I want to like look into Cincinnati to do some work or do resident artist or just see how they set up a glaze station
Yeah.
and their glaze options or what the mold room looks like or, you know, the wheel setups and all that stuff. And
Well, and I will put out there for people who are looking to do this, I will help if anyone is interested in setting up a Queen City Clay in their own state, in their own town, whatever. I'm an open book with this stuff, so they can come and visit, and we can talk through things. Because a lot of places, art is the spark that improves an area, right? And so you have a downtown that's failing in some small towns or whatever. If you get art organizations and artists to go down there and set up shop, people come in, and if they're having experiences down there, well, then they need a place to eat or have a cup of coffee or
Right,
whatever.
right.
And so it's a developer of certain areas of town, and mayors know this, you know, and so you can a lot of times talk to administration, talk to the mayor, and say, this is what I want to set up. Are there areas of town that you're looking at to develop where I could get a good deal on a building if I guarantee that I'm going to keep this operation going for the community for this amount of time or whatever? You know, a lot of times there's huge tax incentives and they're, you know, cities ready to give an artist a space for $1 as long as they are going to set up their living unit and their studio down there, or
Really?
whatever, or set up a gallery or anything that helps the community. And so knowing that you can just go to the mayor and talk to them about this type of thing is scary, but I can help out. I can explain you know, where a lot of this comes from and why certain towns would say, absolutely, what do you need, you know?
so you get a little bit of leverage in that because you're bringing something of value to the community.
Yes.
You're not just any brick and mortar coming in and I mean, it feels like you're going outside the typical rules, but you're not just a contractual, like, paying rent for this space and then you're going about it. Like, you can go other avenues to
Absolutely.
show that you're of value to the community.
Yeah, because towns need the content, right? They might have 20 abandoned buildings ready for renovation. They don't have the businesses ready to move in that are going to be a draw to that area. And you're providing a ridiculously valuable thing for that community.
Yeah.
And that should be leveraged in order to help you out set up a studio that's not going to be $6 million, you know? I mean, I looked at 100 spaces in Cincinnati that were buildings that needed so much work, and still real estate wise, even here, were 1.6 and $2 million and whatever. And that's before you start renovations, which are guaranteed to be over $1 million, you know? So that Norwood was such a nice thing because Norwood retail and different buildings were at a price where you could afford and you could, set up shop. That's why you now have two of the biggest ceramic studios in the United States a mile and a half from each other, right? Because Norwood provided that space, that real estate that was affordable and would allow you to then have a little bit of budget to do the repairs and everything,
Right.
And so there are cities everywhere that are willing to put money toward content like that.
Do you think it's a lot of cities that are kind of is it the size of the city as well as like?
No.
Do you feel like it's unique to Cincinnati because of how big we are in comparison to other?
Absolutely not. I mean, you look at like Paducah, Kentucky, and places who are going to rely on people traveling to that town, buying things, and leaving. The tourism is a big part of Paducah, Kentucky. And so when they look at a space like that, they're like, okay, hey, let's provide 10 storefronts at almost no cost to artists, as long as they're willing to put their studio and gallery down here and live upstairs, right? And so that was a big fire they lit, and now you do have huge amounts of people traveling to that area. There are lots of mayors around that are just small towns where the whole downtown is dead. Everyone moved out to a mall or whatever. Now the malls are failing. They want to get everyone back downtown, right? And in order to do that,
and the downtowns have the character and everything
they
too.
do. They have gorgeous architecture and everything else. But in order to do that, they got to have the businesses willing to move in and take that leap. And it's always the artists that do that first, right? And they transform an area. They make it a place that people want to show up and hang out. And so
maybe
have
it's a little
value.
sketchy initially, and you're like, okay, we're making it work. And then,
I mean, when no one's there and you just have broken windows and whatever else, it takes the artists to move in, show the potential of that place, and to say like, see past what a building looks like right then, knowing what it could look like because you're an artist, right?
Plus, a ceramic studio could be dirty and it's like acceptable. It's not. It doesn't have to be this pristine thing that has everything taken care of. It's like, okay, our floors are still concrete. Like, it's fine. We don't need to make it look perfect. And
right. And so, so if you're willing to put in the work, and it takes a lot of work to set up a studio, but you should find that support with any size town.
Are there grants and things like that too, or is it more just partnering with? And maybe they say, "Oh, we have these things that you can apply for."
Yeah,
that we think
and
you'd
so
be perfect for.
Yes, there are lots, but you need to look at your niche, right? They're going to be local grants a lot of times, like Arts Wave and our larger arts organizations that are supporting art in the region. Mm-hmm. They might be giving grants out for artists to do projects or to start something or whatever. But if you look on a national level, the support for businesses owned by people of color or female-owned businesses, things like that you can take advantage of, where you're putting out a product and your ownership reflects what the grant is going for. That's huge to look at, because there's a lot of money going into that right now, and rightfully so. Mm-hmm. And so looking at that type of setup, as well as the fact that a lot of cities are going to be setting up money for startups, right? Because they know that small business drives the economy in that local region. And so they might be, really pushing incentives towards small business setting up. So it depends on the region, what your ownership looks like, what type of company you are, all of that. Mm-hmm. But there's several ways to find grant funding or tax abatement or anything like that.
Yeah. And you've kind of mentioned that there could be a limitation of, like, maybe there's not a good clay supplier nearby, and you find that there are people that I've been making in my studio and I've got to go 2 hours somewhere. Yeah. And you're like, I love that you set up here, and now I can get my clay here, and I don't have to go 4 hours round trip to go get clay. And it's
exactly.
Like,
and
you just got a customer for
schools,
life, as
right?
long as you don't make them mad or do something.
You got local schools in regions where there isn't a clay center or something. Those local schools are ordering from Dick Blick or some huge
how do you get in
company,
with those
right?
schools and say, like, this is what we offer? Is it just going to them and saying, hey?
You talk to the administration, and the main thing is that you're not just saying, look, I will compete with Dick Blick and everything, but the problem with Dick Blick is that you are, or any of those huge companies, you are getting something that's been sitting in a warehouse forever, right? And they're just shipping stuff out everywhere, and the quality of that product is because they
have to buy so much of it,
millions, of boxes going everywhere. And so the quality of that product, when it gets to the teacher, you don't know what it is. Sometimes it might be perfect. Sometimes it might be unusable at that point, right? Mm-hmm. As well as the fact that you're getting zero education with that for ceramics. And ceramics is hard because you have a kiln in the school and glazes, and you could melt all your pots on a kiln shelf, right? So as a local distributor, you have to be that education center. You have to say to the teachers, whatever you need, I will talk you through the cone chart. I will, and I will get you a product that you can use, that you're proud of, and I can help you learn to use it in any way you need in order to have a successful clay program in your studio, right? And so you're making that personal connection so the teachers feel comfortable talking to you, and the administration knows that you have the school's interests at heart, right? And so once you put that together, they would rather support you than the huge
business that they've got to get it shipped, and maybe you have the ability to deliver it in person.
And you might end up being a very big supplier. I mean, you look at Mid-South Ceramics, they're the only supplier in all of Tennessee. Link is the only supplier with Kentucky Mudworks in all of Kentucky, right? Ohio has like 10. And so it's heavy competition, but we're all friends, and it works really well. At the same time, there are lots of places in the United States where you would be the only thing within hundreds of miles, right? So why you wouldn't set up a studio there to support your local community, I don't know, if that's your passion, because you can absolutely find success.
Yeah, because I mean, it seems like that'd be kind of like a bread and butter thing where you just get money coming in, and you just like, okay, new semester's up, what clay do you need? And you're just like taking an order. It's just like sending an email. They tell you what they need. How do I pay for it? And it's not their money. The school's paying for it or whatever. So it's like, okay. It's an easy sell, I guess.
Right.
And then you're like, oh, well, my students had a little issue with this. Well, maybe we'll give you some of this to try out.
Yeah.
And see if that is any better.
And I would really suggest that whoever wants to do that. So I have a staff that we talked about, has different personalities and different tolerances and everything. If you don't have a Beth or a me in your location where you can handle unlimited amounts of questions, varying backgrounds, you can handle people yelling at you because they had a bad day, and this is a place they can let their frustration out, whatever. If you don't have that person, then you're not going to be in business that long, because the amount of personalities you deal with on a daily basis in an arts organization is mind-boggling. And you are a place of therapy for a lot of people. And not just that, when you're dealing with teachers, they have a million things on their mind. They are not getting paid what they should get paid. They're constantly under attack. They have to deal with huge amounts of kids and disciplinary problems, and all of these things. Clay is the last part of that, and maybe they love that program, but they have to deal with the kiln and the administration asking about the kiln.
They got to be a teacher and a studio tech and a troubleshooter and everything.
Exactly. So you have to be so flexible, so patient, and so willing to have those interactions all the time, and not look at the fact that, oh, this person's yelling at me right now, but think, why is this person yelling at me? What part of their day went so wrong that this is happening? And have the patience to listen to them, understand that, calm them down, and then they leave feeling better about themselves and the situation. And that happens every day, right? So if you don't love it, it does
You're
not
like,
work.
I'm not getting paid enough to do this.
You will burn out. But I love it, and a lot of my staff members love it. They want that all the time.
Yeah, I can pretty much count on that when I'm going to interact with you. I'm going to get pretty much the same Ben every single day. You're probably moving around. You probably got a lot of things going on in your mind. But I'm going to get you're going to be positive, and you're going to answer whatever I ask.
Absolutely.
And if you're approached in a way that's not like hitting, you have to solve my problem right now. But it's hey, he's going to be patient with me.
Yeah,
and I
well-
definitely appreciate that. So
But at the same time, like, the reward is there, right? I mean, we've known each other for a long time now, and I got to work with you at NKU, and
I learned pulling handles from Ben.
There we go.
That's my hand. That's how my handles look the way they do. It's because learning from Ben Clark at NKU.
yeah, and then now look at where you are now and everything. So I'm always interested in what you're doing and the success you're having and all that. And you think about that with a million people, right? I've worked with and taught so many people, and a lot of times I'm dealing with 4,000 students every year, going in
Yeah.
and out, right? And so a lot of those interactions, a huge amount, are people that I've known for so long that you're figuring out what's happening in their life and their successes and their failures and there's whatever. And so that, I love that. I love hearing what people are doing and how can we help on the next step and whatever. It's always a good thing for me, and that's what keeps my energy up.
Yeah,
And
being in the city, you're always cross pollinating. Like,
right.
if you don't like somebody, or you're probably gonna cross paths with them in some other avenue.
Yeah.
In like a professional setting or a fun setting or whatever. Like, we're always gonna cross paths, so you might
Yeah.
as well like get along and
Right.
figure out how to work together. And,
Right. And the community is plenty big enough for everyone to succeed,
Yeah.
and support each other. So there's no point in not doing that. So no, I think that you have to have a person like that who's there all the time, right? And then you fill out your staff or volunteers with people who can do the things that you just don't have the energy to do
Right,
after that. So there's got to be a people person, and there's got to be that business side as well. And Denise, if I didn't have Denise, I would go insane, because she loves accounting and she handles all, so I say, this is what I want to do, and she'll say, go do it, and then if I'm doing something that's too expensive for us at a certain point, or I'm doing something that she doesn't see as a good long-term investment, then she questions me. And if I prove to her through the passion of my argument, like, no, this will pay, right?
Yeah.
Say, all right, let's we'll go for it. But there's always that give and take there, that where I'm allowed to run with these ideas, and then she freezes me, depending on the ebb and flow of cash in the business, of when's the best time to put those ideas out there and everything. And so I don't have to worry about
And is
that.
she pretty in the mix with like knowing? I feel like you're in the mix day to day here. Is she pretty much in sync with you on like a weekly basis, or
Yes.
is it pretty daily, or is it like, how is that relationship with a partner?
Yeah, I mean,
in
so with our
owning?
business, we have a couple of meetings every week, right, that are big staff meetings where we're talking through everything, but we're probably having 50 teeny meetings every week with everybody. And so Denise and I are touching base a lot, but we have kind of official meetups once or twice a week.
Okay. And how hard is it? How important is it to cultivate that and make sure that that is the right partner, and you work well together, you counter each other well, and you get along well as like,
Yeah,
this is what we're in it for, the long term.
And I think that's the main thing, is what is your long-term view of what do you want to get out of this business, right?
You personally,
And
or you as a collective, or
you
individually?
as both, all of those, right? And you write them down, and you have contracts. Because that's the scary part, is Denise and I are great friends, and everything, we get along beautifully, and we have each other's backs and everything. But what if something horrible happens to my family or their family, or divorce, or a kid wants to take over for like, there are all these things you would never predict. Having a good contract at the beginning of that says, well, here's what happens if that comes up, right? You don't have to have that argument down the road. You don't have to have that uncomfortable thing. Like, the contract is there. You go to the contract, and it says
So
what
it's
you
not
guys
out of
agreed on
emotion, yeah.
when you were best friends, right? And so that is, I think, very important to have that baseline there. And then Denise has a successful vet clinic, right? And she's been a part of this studio, and she's known me for a long time. And she literally said, I want you to succeed. I want you to be able to take this vision and go as far as you can with it. I understand you can't do that if you are having to learn the finance side of things.
Right.
You will completely control your daily life, and so I want to do that for you. You tell me how you want this business set up. That's what our agreement will be, and then I will be the best consultant I can along the way. And so far, that has proved to be perfectly true.
Yeah.
And
instead of over strenuous
right.
working on things that are outside your skill set and getting ramped up, you get,
Yeah.
you have that support.
So if you have the benefit of, somebody being financially sound moving into this, that helps a lot. And I think all potters know that, because usually your spouse or whatever is the one that's getting your health care and whatever, and allowing you to do what you do. It's the same in business. Like Denise is successful in life, right? And so this is not a live or die situation that this studio succeeds. She wants it to succeed because she wants me to succeed, right? Which is amazing that you find somebody like that. But and my wife's the same way. She's the one who provides the health care. She works her butt off, and allows me to do what I do. And so that support system has been very, very important. But with Denise, there'll be things that change, right? I mean, I'm sure there'll be, times when our kids want to get involved or don't want to get involved, and what do we do? Do we just let our kids work here? Do we, they go through an interview process with everything? Like, how do you work that out? And so those discussions will be down the road.
Yeah, and you're like, as long as I'm not hiring them officially or somebody else is interviewing them.
Right, and that's a thing. Those will be hard discussions to have, but we have the framework. We have this basis of respect. We've proven that we work together well and can decide anything over time. So,
And do you have to? How do you set up those? And this is kind of separate, but how do you set up those boundaries so that you leave work at work and you balance the home life as well? Because I'm sure this could be consuming because there's so many things that you have going on, and you are like,
my wife will tell you that I have not figured that out yet. And I agree with her. I have not. And the hard part is that I love everybody here. So I want to not just be working here. I want to
one
hang
love
out
for
with
another
these
love,
people afterwards, right? And I want my family to be here all the time. And my kids like the people who are here. And so they, it's fun for them to come and talk to all the adults here, and all the adults are interested in what they're doing. And so it is hard. I think that you have to look at your family schedule and look at the fact that you need to clean the house. You need to take kids to school and dentist appointments and everything else. And just because Krista's schedule is more flexible than mine doesn't mean that she should take the full brunt of that. And so that has been a work in progress. And I try hard.
Krista is your wife.
Krista's my wife.
I thought Chrissy for a second when you said Krista. But
No. Krista's my wife, and she runs the biology department at UC Claremont. And so she has like a big job. But at the same time, she's also very fast at doing things. And so, like, anything online or whatever, she's fast at, and she's just ridiculously smart, so she figures stuff out faster than I do. So a lot of times she's caught in that mess where it's like, well, I could teach you how to do this, and it'll take me a week and a half, or I could just do it in an hour. Right? And so she does get stuck doing more stuff than she should, and it's because I do, like, I have big ideas for this place, and I want to constantly push it, and I want to constantly be here to make sure that stuff's going well.
And it seems like she has a collective ownership with you, because she knows that she's relieving some stress from you.
Yes. That
also frees up time for the family time.
Yes.
And
and she's on the building ownership team too. So imagine not just like taking the brunt of some of the family stuff, having your own job, but then having your husband be like, hey, I would like you to sign your life away for this huge real estate purchase. I promise you it'll go well, So she has an amazing amount of faith in the whole situation. And so there's more stress. That's why,
Yeah.
where I feel like I should be at work more, because
Yeah.
I have to make this work.
Right.
But no, that is a constant work in progress. And we have had our fair share of, fights where she's like, you have to come home sometimes.
Right.
And I do want to be home and hang out with
Yeah.
the kids and everything. So I'm making that work. I'm getting better at it.
Yeah. Especially when you're growing, you're like, well, I have to put in the time because
yeah.
it like I'm the end all be all.
Right.
Like you have a staff that can pick up that.
Yes.
If you're gone to Africa, for instance, but yeah, like you're the end all be all. You're like, this thing is not going to go if I don't put in the work, so I have to make sacrifices. So it's hard to make that balance and make sure it's understood as well as like where can we meet in the middle.
Right. Well, and as owner too, it's very hard in that my staff running a place this big with this much going on, they should all be making $100,000, right? Mm-hmm. And that's not possible with this organization. It just isn't. And so we try and support that with more flexibility with schedule and perks from the business and all of that type of stuff. But in the back of your head, always you're like, I can't ask them to do more. I'm just going to do it, right? And so I put myself in a bad situation a lot of times with that too, because
you commit to something without knowing if the staff can do it, or
it's more that there are jobs that I know that they don't want to do so much, right?
Oh, okay.
And I could, if they were being compensated to the moon, right? I could be like, do that. All right, you're doing that, and at the same time, I have a problem with empathy, and I can't do that. So, I'm gonna spend more time and try and not put them in that situation. But we're working that out too.
Yeah, and you grow that over time.
The more successful the business, we try and bring the whole ship up at the same time. So
yeah. Okay. So where's the studio going 5 to 10 years? Where's your
Well, our vision is that we want to be the place to look at for a community studio in the United States, right? If you want to set up a place where you have this amazing community and you're supporting your community and you're doing all the things for ceramics, we want you to look at Queen City Clay and say, okay, that's how you do that. So that's our 5-year plan, and we broke that down. And
this building's a big part of that.
The building is a huge part, and offering all of the things, the wood kiln, the soda kiln, the raku setup, the pit, artist and resident programs that will get you to your next spot, teaching all the classes, the huge push for local teachers and giving them outside education, and all of that is in place, offering programming for every age group, for every budget. We're trying to implement things through the next 5 years to do all of that, as well as greatly improve diversity in the studio. So that's the 5-year, and with that is that alternative energy plan as well, recycling the water and figuring out how to make a good portion of this place run on solar.
Yeah, there is a lot of waste that's involved, and the energy needs are just crazy.
Yeah. And what's
sure the
beautiful
Blau helps
about
with
this,
that, and
Blau helps a huge amount, But the other thing with this place, so it's double the size of the old place, right? Mm-hmm. Our monthly payment is cheaper. Our monthly energy cost is cheaper. We have air conditioning in multiple parts of this building.
That's just efficiencies of the building because
we're getting new things that are highly efficient and all LEDs everywhere.
You're not inheriting all of the bad
and not just that, we can do things to this building we couldn't do there. So we have insulation sprayed everywhere in this building, right? And so you're just trying to be more conscious of your footprint everywhere, and that's going to take time and it takes money, right? That solar will take care of 90% of our electric in the entire 97% in the whole building. At the same time, whatever tax incentives or anything they're putting out there, that's still $500,000 you have to be prepared to lay out in order to get that program going. Mm-hmm. So it's like,
right.
Okay.
That's another
97% is
another
the projected,
contract you get
right?
assigned. Yeah.
You don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah.
So it's scary. scary as hell.
You're like, it better be sunny the next few months.
Exactly.
Winter, get out of here.
And you think of the leaps and bounds that process is changing every month, right?
The technology
new technologies,
grows so
how
quickly.
efficient they are, how long they last, all that stuff. So when do you pull the trigger, and when can you afford to pull the trigger, and did you make the right decision? That's so hard. We are committed to doing it in 5 years. So it's going to happen. It's just a matter of being as smart as possible about it.
Yeah, just with any of this business things, there's so many unknowns that you just try.
Yeah.
You don't know if it's going to work. You hope
Right.
it works. You hope for the best, but...
And that being said, no one who works here has a business degree. Not a single one, right? We're figuring stuff out. Like Chrissy figured out how to maintain our entire website, how to update it, how to teach people to do their parts, everything. She didn't know anything about any of that, right? But it was one of those things where she started to dabble, and she was like, well, I can kind of figure this out, right?
Yeah.
So now she's our website person. And so you're
So are there general
constantly-
qualities of things you look at in somebody when you're hiring? Those people were already in-house, but
Yeah.
are there qualities that you're looking at when people are scouting? Maybe they're like, they don't already have, do they have to have clay experience? Do they not? So
So we do, with a lot of our people, we say, we're a clay education facility. So we can teach you the clay experience side. It would help if you had clay experience, but that's not a
you're
deal
not teaching
breaker.
an 8-week class in
Right.
3 weeks, figure it out.
It's more, are you a hard worker? Are you resilient? And do you like people? Those are the three things. And yes, now we're checking, like, how comfortable are you with social media? And do you love that side of things? Because we need everyone to be able to come up with content and post and stuff like that. But mainly it's the hard work, resilient, and resilient meaning any day here can turn into chaos, right? Something goes wrong, everyone's got to jump in and help each other out. You have a big event coming, and you have to stop doing your job and clean a bathroom, or whatever. You got to be able to handle all that stuff and not think that some job is below you and all of that. You have to be a team player, and you have to be able to shake off a bad day and come in the next day and be as happy as you were before,
Okay.
And so those are the types of things we're looking at.
Okay, awesome. All right, be conscious of time. Wrap up here. Anything specifically, how do you want people to see Queen City Clay? If they're coming in NCECA, we talked about that. QueenCityClay.com, Queen City Clay Instagram.
Yes.
Any other avenues that you all like people to hit?
Our Facebook page has a lot of information on it too, but all of the shows and everything, that'll all be on the website, and we'll have those posts on Instagram running. But no, just come in and explore the whole building and know that we have fun little murals hidden everywhere, and just a million pieces of art, not just from the shows, but from all of our students that'll be on display. So it's a fun place to come and walk through. And we'll have plenty
I
of
would
people
definitely
there.
recommend walking through, seeing the retail space, seeing the studio. Like, it's humongous. And just the kiln room. A lot of people probably don't go in the kiln room unless you're dropping pieces off, but the kilns are crazy. There's so many different nooks and crannies to see, and we didn't even touch on the gallery that much, but it's there. You didn't previously have much of a gallery before, so
the Trish Martindale Gallery, that's it'll be in full effect for NCECA.
Yeah,
we'll have a show in there, and it's gonna be good because the Archie Bray retrospective is gonna be in here, which would be super cool.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and so come and check it out, and then hopefully you fall in love and you move to Cincinnati and you just stay here forever.
There you go. Love it. All right, thanks so much, Ben. And we're doing a shot glass meetup Clay Buddies thing on Thursday. I think that's in conjunction with I don't know if that's just timing with the reception for the opening, but I'll be here for that.
They're trying to find a space, and we wanted them here. So
we're doing a little get together. I think Becca and I will be there. So
sweet.
It should be a good time. Thanks so much, Ben. Appreciate
thank you.
it.
I appreciate you.
And we'll see you all next time. Thanks everybody for listening.
Yo, higgity yo. It's Becca here. Hey, just so you know, thank you for listening. And also, we have... What do we have again? A Patreon. We have a Patreon that you should go, and if you want to donate to, you could donate to it. If you don't, that's cool too. But just Google Wheel Talk Podcast Patreon. Don't do the other one, because there is a Wheel Talk on Patreon, but it's not us. So make sure you get the right one. It's in the show notes. And also, leave us a review because they're fun to read. Okay, bye!